Welcome to the Sports Betting Preview, a pregame.com podcast. This is your host, Marco D'Angelo, along with Vegas Runner, and we're going to take a look at a Friday NBA game. It is the Denver Nuggets at the LA Lakers, Friday night, ESPN. This could be a preview of the Western Conference Finals.
Absolutely, the way they're both playing right
These
now.
are 1-2 seeds in the West at the moment. VR, what you got? Well, we normally go to you for the lines, but since we're taping on Wednesday, we don't have an actual line. So what we'll do is Vegas Runner will tell you what he thinks the line's going to be. I'll tell you what I think it's going to be,
right,
and then we'll work it from there.
Okay.
VR, go ahead.
What I've been trying to do, Marco, is put out my true line here in the podcast, and then try to adjust for perception. And the perception changes from day to day based on how a team performed. So here I'm trying to use what my true line is, and that's based on actual strength of both teams. That if I put them out there on the court, this is what I thought Team A is actually better than Team B. I made Lakers a 5.5 point home favorite, and I set the total at 206. Maybe a little high on the total end after their first meeting, but I think with Denver, you got to pass the 200 range when they're playing the Lakers. So I set it at 5.5 and 206. What number did you put for that?
I didn't have a total, but I did have the side, and I have the Lakers at 6.5 in the game.
I would not be surprised the way they're playing.
Now, one of the keys to what the line's going to be on Friday, both of these teams play tonight.
Exactly.
Now, again, we're taping on Wednesday, so there will be a game between now and the Friday game. And when I looked at the game to break it down, first off, the Lakers are coming off an unprecedented eight-game road trip. The Staples Center was booked for some events, and the biggest being this past Sunday, the Grammys, and I think they had a lot of days in preparation for the Grammys. So they were without a home, and that's why the 8-game road trip. They went 5-3 on that road trip,
which is very good.
Very good for playing that long on the road. History-wise, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've always been a believer that when a team plays a road trip, a long road trip, that the first game back home is going to be the game that's the
toughest for them. Yeah, right. Because they got to get acclimated to being back home. There's a lot of
time with the family.
Yeah, and then you get back into your routine.
So what would really be nice in this game is if the Lakers do have that flat game tonight, so to speak, which will get us a little bit of line value for Friday night's game.
Right.
And this is a big revenge game for the Lakers. And the one thing that the Lakers, it seems like they don't come to play every night. It seems like there's a lot of nights that they just go through the motions, be down 6 or 7,
and find ways to motivate themselves
through 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, they win by the fourth quarter by 10 and end up winning by 3 or 4. This game definitely, I think, is going to be a statement game for the Lakers. They got blown out earlier in the season at Denver.
26 points.
Yeah, 105-79. But what I'll note is when they played that game, I believe it was a Thursday. It was back-to-back.
It was Friday the 13th, actually. It was November 13th.
They played Thursday on TNT.
Right.
And they drilled Phoenix 121-102, and then had to flip-flop and go to Denver the next night. And Denver was sitting there rested, waiting. Revenge from last year's Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I remember.
So
there was a lot.
Everything pointed to Denver in that first game.
And to add, with Denver's road record, I mean, they're 33-15 overall, which looks great. It's only 4 games behind the Lakers. But their road record is only 11-12. Where the Lakers are 23-3 at home. So I think you're right. I think my true line of 5.5 may be a little low. So I tend to agree with you. I think they're going to come up with 6 or higher. I don't think the outcome of tonight's games is going to change that very much. So I think the Lakers will come up out around there. I agree with you.
I don't have an official free pick on this game. I'm going to lean to the Lakers side here because, as I said, I believe the Lakers, they're kind of like to be the bully on the block, so to speak. They come to play when it's the big games, and when it seems like it's that team that's rising above the rest of the pack and saying, hey, we're going to be your challenger. That's when the Lakers are at their best because they want to remind you, boom, boom, we're still the top dog. Slap them back down. And the revenge motive, second game back home, I think it all shapes up points, for the Lakers.
I lean Lakers too, to be honest with you, and I think maybe I did a little wishful thinking and hoping that the line was going to offer us value. But with it being an ESPN game, I don't think it will, even with Carmelo back. So we may have to pay a little premium, but I think it'll be worth it. Reason being, when you look at that first meeting, not only did Denver dominate, but I mean they controlled the whole pace of the game. They were up by 29 points at one time. It could have got worse. More importantly, they beat them with points in the paint. I have here that they scored so many more points in the paint, so many more fast break points. So they beat them running the court, and they beat them inside. More importantly, the Lakers only got to the free throw line 16 times in that game, which is rare for them. And worse, they only shot 62%. On the flip side, Denver got to the free throw line 29 times, and they hit 25 of those. I don't think they're going to get those kind of calls in LA in such a big game. So I think just that discrepancy alone gives the Lakers an edge coming in. I agree with you. Even though it's hard to say there's value on the Lakers, I think in this situation, getting them less than double digits actually does offer some line value.
When you said that you were hoping to get some good value, but to be honest with you, I know this is going to sound stupid to a lot of listeners, but
it would scare you if the line came out 4.5.
Exactly,
and that makes sense because it's not it don't make sense to listeners, Marco. I think about that concept a lot, and I think what it is we just don't explain it correctly. The reason if it came out 4.5, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because you not believe that these guys are so good, but obviously they know their stuff enough, speaking about the odds makers, and not necessarily the ones here in Vegas, but the ones offshore, that they do enough homework that for them to bring out a line of 4.5 when your perception or even your true line shows it should be 7, means there's something they found out to change that number. And maybe it isn't apparent to everyone, but you trust that they found that little nugget. They're not sharing it with everyone, but that's the reason they put that line out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the reason behind it.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and I found that when I see a line that I think looks too good to be true,
correct,
that team is going to lose 60% of the time.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it goes back to these guys. They make mistakes. Sure, when there's so many games they got to cover, they make mistakes. But when it's such a big game, when it's that ESPN matchup, you got to give them a little credit that they put a little more work into it because it's going to attract so much volume. And you doing that has been successful for you. So whether it sounds goofy or not, the bottom line is it's produced winning results, and that's all that matters.
Well, as we wrap this up, I'm going to give you a plug. Just with this concept, I've started a daily thread in the forums. And you can
the
check
trap
it
game. The trap
It's
game.
hunting for a Vegas trap.
Sure.
And I talk about these kind of concepts where we look to see games that just don't look right. The line smells fishy. Vegas is trying to entice one-sided action. It's a very good thread.
Yeah, definitely a must-read every day because you usually focus in on the games people are talking about, and because I check it out every day, to be honest with you, and you usually nail that game. I'm not talking about winning it or losing it, but are able to circle that game that's going to attract pretty much the most volume that night. It's at least in the top 5. Every time you put out a game, it's in the top 5 in volume.
Well, that's been a good first segment. We both lean to the Lakers. No official pick on the game, but we both have opinions. Lakers. This wraps up our first edition. Now, we'll be back with our normal set of videos this week. We're going to have all kinds of coverage on the Super Bowl and one college basketball game we'll look at for Saturday. This has been the Sports Betting Preview. Vegas Runner, I'm Marco D'Angelo. We'll talk to you again.